Chile has enjoyed one of the most dynamic economies in Latin America in recent years, largely based on a booming export sector, but Chilean scientists suggest climate change could pose huge challenges for the country. Chile is one of the countries that is getting much more serious about climate change and developing something that's much more robust in terms of policies.
In this part, we found 8 vulnerabilities that climate change will cause for Chile and also the 2 opportunities that will caused by the climate change.
The first vulnerability for Chile is erosion, and is affecting Chile in its ecological, economic, and social way. Chile's agricultural people are mostly affected by this vulnerability. The level is high because erosion has a significant impact on soil resource, since it removes the most productive part for the soil. In Chile, erosion has been a problem over the years and it's getting worse and worse. According to data, about 60% of Chile land area has been affected by erosion. The second vulnerability is called extinction of biodiversity. The recent rise in the average global temperature has a great impact on the biological and ecological response in plants and animals. The level is high. It's important for us to protect the biodiversity. Chile is cultured as one of the 6 hotspots on planet with the greatest biodiversity and the greatest number of undiscovered species. However, 40 mammals are listed as endangered, while at the same time, 1,600 out of 4,000 plants are facing extinctions. Actions are required today, not tomorrow.
The climate change has great impact in vulnerable populations, especially the health of elderly, children, and the poor. It has influence not only in the social dimension, but also ecological and economical way. Research shows a general trend towards more and more extremely dry years. It is also increased the risk to life due to increase in the intensity of tropical cyclones. The other vulnerability is tourism. The retreat of Andean glaciers affect the availability of the fresh water for irrigation and domestic use, mountain recreation, and for the animals and plants that depend on the glacier melt for survival. It also makes the glaciers, as well as the related fauna and flora, less accessible to tourists, affecting tour guides' revenue.
Climate change also has some vulnerabilities for the agriculture in Chile, and the exposure here will be the farms in Chile, especially people who plant fruits and people who work for the wind companies. Although Chile is the world's largest exporter of copper, it also exports lots of fruits and wind every year. But because of the global warming, the temperature raised and result in 2 things. The first thing is there will be more harmful insects which hurt the agricultural ecology. And the second thing is the rate of reaping process will be changed, become faster than before. Does that sound good? At least not for Chile. Cause if the fruit grows quickly, it will not be as sweet as it before. As the quantity descended, the export volume decreased. Then the Chile's economic being hurt. Lots of farmers and wind companies go broke. People lost their job and then the social become unstable. For the glacier in Chile, there's also some vulnerabilities which is caused by the climate change. The hazard here is glacier melting caused the earthquake and tsunami, and exposure here will be the people who live in circum-Pacific seismic belt. For Chile, earthquake is always a huge threat as most of its land located on circum-Pacific seismic belt. In recent days, because of the glacier melting, this problem even more serious than before. Glacier is just like a finger which prides on a soccer ball, and the soccer here is represent the earth. When the finger is removed and the pressure released, the ball resumes its original shape. If that happened on Earth, that may cause an earthquake. Because of the earthquake, buildings were destroyed. People lose their family, become homeless. That caused both the social and economic problems. As the earthquake also hurt plants and animals, it also had some impact on ecology.
Next, I want to talk about the extreme weather in Chile. The climate in the north of the country is used to be extremely dry. Rainfall is almost zero. However, climate change caused the weather chaos in the north area. Drought, floods, and storms suffer the country at the same time. Chile is a country that highly relies on the agricultural industry. Agricultural industry is very sensitive for those weather conditions. Not only rural areas are influenced, but also natural disasters destroy the city and make huge loss to the country. Sea level rise is also a big problem for Chile right now. Global warming is melting the glaciers, which cause sea level rise. It will impact on those low-lying areas, such as La Plata estuary, coastal cities, and coastal morphology, coral reefs and mangroves, location of fish stocks, availability of drinking water, and tourism due to the sea level rise and extreme events. Due to the reason that Chile is a narrow country, 1-inch increase in sea level will lead huge shrinking of the country.
The first opportunity is wine industry southward. The ecological change is average temperatures rising and rain become more scarce. Climate change sends Chile's wine industry southward. This will affect vintners, citizens, and farmers in south. The prospect is lying in southern Chile, where high rainfall and cold temperatures have traditionally made winemaking a new wine frontier opening up down south, such as the Forest Araucanía region. There are more working opportunities for people, and this encourages the wine industry and economic development in south. The second opportunity is the renewable energy sector. The ecological change is Chilean Citizen Committee on Climate Change showing that switching 100% renewable energy by 2050, the country could avoid spending $5.3 billion a year on fossil fuels and save 1,500 lives a year due to reduced air pollution and create 11,000 green jobs. It will affect people who seek a job in Chile. The prospect is avoid additional 800 air pollution-related deaths each year and create 4,000 additional green jobs in the renewable energy sector.
In this part, we are going to talk about economic, the fossil fuel, and the deforestation and forest regeneration in Chile. And also we will show that dominant lifestyles of different groups in Chile, show the vulnerable population and the 5 trade-offs for Chile. First, the economic change in Chile. Before Industrial Revolution, Chile is a country which relied on agriculture, forestry, and animal husbandry. At that time, Chile was part of the Velocity of Peru. Under the colonial economic system, Chile was first noticed by its endowment of forestry and animal husbandry. Chile exported husbandry products to the rise of the Velocity of Peru and became the only local that could supply the Velocity of Peru with some special wood. After Peru was struck by both an earthquake and a steam rust, Chile began to export wheat to Peru. So to sum up with, Chile was a country which relied on its primary industry at that time. Then in its imperialism time, Chile started to develop its industry, and the sign of this is that the government of Chile decided to make its copper state-owned. And nowadays, Chile has already become the world's largest copper export. Compared with its primary industry, its secondary industry become more important for Chile's economic. However, problems coming with its industrial upgrading. Chile used lots of fuel to refine copper, which may exacerbate the global warming. Lots of greenhouse gases be discharged into atmosphere, which may cause the global warming even more serious than before.
Chile is rich in natural resources, but the country has limited fossil fuels. Over 90% of the country's fossil fuels must be imported. Chile's energy sector is largely privatized. The energy demand has been growing rapidly since 1992. The first reason is from increased power demand of mining. The second one is from large urban areas. Chile's carbon dioxide emission per capita is 4.73 in 2013. Chile's emissions are low, just 0.25% of the world's total. It's much lower than the world's greatest carbon emitter, the US, in 2013. Chile's emission was close to the global average. It's below the most OECD countries and responsible for 4.7% of the region emission. In world rank, Chile is ranked 44 in total emissions and ranked 85 in per capita emissions.
About 80% of Chile's natural forests have been destroyed or degraded. From 1985 to 1995, Chile lost nearly 2 million hectares of native forest. These forests were destroyed for pulp and made way for industrial tree farms. Central Chile has lost 38% of forests between 1975 and 2008. 19% of the areas that used to be forests are now bare and eroded lands. As the data indicates, the carbon footprint in Chile increases as the deforestation gets worse. The purpose for the campaign is to plant 1 million trees in Chilean Patagonia in what has been considered the largest, most ambitious native tree forestation campaign in country's history. The campaign has drawn support from many national campaigns including AOA Airlines, Coca-Cola, Falabella, Campground, and Rockford, all of whom have volunteered to be reforest Patagonia's 5 founding campaigns, with each group contributing 10,000 trees to the effort. The urban in Chile with middle or high income. According to data, about 89% of people in Chile living urban produce the most emission and have high amount of carbon footprint per person. They have a serious problem about air pollution, better quality of life such as health and education facilities, electricity and transportation. The climate change capacity is not as difficult as urban. Most people is able to afford protection such as flood and extreme weather. Climate change is causing environmental issues and health problems for people in urban. The rural in Chile with low income. According to data, about 11% of people in Chile live in rural. 4.5% are considered extremely poor. The carbon footprint in rural population is very small amount. Jobs are mostly certain in agriculture, smaller and simple in factory. Medicine and technology is not as advanced as in the city. Very hard for rural population to adapt to climate change, not only because of the lack of money, but also direct impact on their lives such as agriculture.
I'm going to introduce women as one of the vulnerable population group. According to data, women and children are 14 times more vulnerable than men in climate change, related to natural disasters such as floods and droughts. Also, because women are frequently responsible for taking care of children and elderly, they are often the last to leave when a disaster strikes, while at the same time many disasters are caused by climate change. Adaptation. Chile will host a conference early next year in conjunction with the 20th anniversary of the Beijing Platform for Action to commit to gender equity and women's empowerment. Poor people are more vulnerable because it's harder for them to adapt to climate change. Also, at the same time, they are facing a lot of challenges. The decline in agriculture raises the food price, leaving the world's poorest incredibly vulnerable to pay more budget on foods. Also, the more natural disasters increase the risk to human health. Poor people need to pay more on health service as the disaster increase. While at the same time, the same hazard causes a much more bigger disaster in poor countries, making it even poorer and hit poorer people even harder. The adaptation. Chile has published good policies directed at reducing poverty. The quality of life and the economy of Chile are rising. The Chile public health system works better and the poor have access to it. Indigenous people in Chile have been particularly vulnerable to the impacts of climate change, caused by closer connection between their mountain environment, their livelihoods, and social systems. An increased observance of the crop disease, as well as the direct impacts on the workload of farmers, who must now walk longer distance in order to work on the fields. While at the same time, the occurrence of more frequent and extreme weather events such as storms, droughts, may cause more health problems. Young children and elderly are especially vulnerable to it. Adaptation. In September of 2008, the Chile government ratified Convention 169 of the International Labour Organization, which guarantees additional rights to the indigenous people living in Chile. Agriculture is one of the most important economic sectors in Chile, but due to the climate change, agricultural people have also suffered a lot. The extreme weather events directly decrease the productivity of crops and makes food insecurity. It also increases the number of insects, while at the same time, the limited water resource causes less water accessible to agricultural farms. Chile has published a lot of adaptation to it, such as changing the calendar of crop seeds to minimize these climate change risks. The adaptation of the agricultural insurance system to climate change events, improve and expand the credit system for the agriculture and forest sector.
There are 5 trade-offs that Chile is facing right now. First one is reduce and stop deforestation. This action will let the forest absorb more carbon dioxide to stop the global warming. However, Chile used to sell a great amount of timber to the international market every year. Stop cutting trees will cause Chile lose a huge amount of revenue. The second issue is pretty similar with the first one, I believe. Mining industry keep bringing considerable profit for Chile. Limit the mining industry will slow down the economic development of the country. The third trade-off is about air quality in the urban area. The capital of Chile used to suffer from PM2.5, which is heavy air pollution. Reduce the private car driving could decrease pollution and carbon emissions, but the current public transportation system can't ease traffic pressure in urban area. Conversely, it may cause the traffic tied up in the cities. Fourth is clean energy. Building the clean energy plant is a revolutionary way to generate green energy like solar and wind power. It can generate energy without too much carbon dioxide emissions. Unfortunately, Chile is a long and narrow country that doesn't have too much rivers. There's only a few locations that can build the hydroelectric plants. The last one is enforce a carbon tax on common goods, which encouraged people to choose a green lifestyle. But higher tax also force some firms to hide carbon emissions that will make the whole progress useless.
Now, in this part, we are going to talk about the timeline, the political platform in UNFCCC, Kyoto, Paris COP, and the 5 major instances. Also, we will talk about the reasons for engagement and continues, and the path and contributions to climate change.
In the 2016 COP, the President of Chile, Michel Bachelet, said, climate change deepens inequities and multiplies threats. It's our obligation to address this problem before its consequences become irreversible.
Following the timeline in Chile, the UNFCCC signed in 1992 and in effect in 1995. The Tokyo Protocol signed in 1998, entered into force in 2005, and the Paris COP signed in this year, 2016. First, let's talk about the political platform in UNFCCC. Chile is highly vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. The losses could represent 1.1% of annual GDP. Due to great social and economic inequalities in the country, the population with the least resources, those will be most at risk for the negative effects of climate impacts. Chile wants to be part of the solution to the global problem, and the first step is to assume a strong climate commitment. Then, the ratification of the Tokyo Protocol provides major economic instruments and funding mechanisms to support the transformation that will allow the Chile to effectively face climate change, gradually bring the country's growth into harmony with sustainable development criteria. A technical and political analysis to permit Chile to be more active in supporting the UNFCCC and the Tokyo Protocol. So far, Chile's proposed target is a 30% reduction of GHG emissions below 2007 levels, which is far from an emissions pathway consistent with the limit warming to below 2 degrees. Let alone with the Paris Agreement's stronger 1.5 degrees limit. However, Chile's emissions will continue to increase by 38 to 75% by 2030 compared to 2010's level. Well, Chile's current policy, like carbon tax, are likely to limit emission to its target. An increased number of ambitious policy interventions will limit its emissions to target.
In September 29, 2015, the Republic of Chile submitted a new climate action plan to the UNFCCC. It is empowering all countries to act to prevent average global temperature rise above 2 degrees Celsius and reap the many opportunities that arise from a necessary global transformation to a clean and sustainable development. Also, Chile agreed that there will be no backtracking in its national climate plans, meaning that the level of ambition to reduce emissions will increase over time. In December 2014, Chile is the first country in Latin America and the fourth country in the world to have submitted its first biannual update report to the UNFCCC. The BUR includes a 1990 to 2010 timeline of national greenhouse gas inventories, a comprehensive list of national mitigation actions, the results of the second phase of the MAPS Chile project, a government-driven analysis of mitigation scenarios and options, and the results of a study on flows of international support for climate action in Chile. Since the Kyoto Protocol was adopted in 1997, Chile has been actively engaged in promoting and implementing projects under the Protocol Clean Development Mechanism. Chile played a leading role in advancing the launch of the mechanism by proposing the implementation phase in 1998.
In 2003, Chile established its designated National Authority 22, which is the Kyoto Protocol requirement for all countries seeking to develop emissions reduction and capture projects through the CDM and participate in the so-called carbon market. Chile has also completed some 40 projects via Kyoto Protocol CDM market since 2004. These 40 projects have ranged from landfill methane gas capture, nationwide energy efficiency CFL light bulbs installation project, agriculture methane capture, wind energy project, yielding a total of 300 million in traded carbon credits for Chilean enterprise. Leaders from around the world are converging on Paris for the 2015 UN Climate Change Conference, signal a long-term goal of net zero emissions in the second half of its country, which means producing no more than the planet can absorb without raising temperatures, making dramatic transformation of world's entire energy system, turning away from fossil fuels to the other options like wind, solar, and nuclear power. Agree to come back every few years to increase their pledge and keep doing more and more to reduce greenhouse gas emissions.
Will Chile keep supporting those organizations or not? Our think tank members think that the answer to those questions must be yes. And the reason is because that Chile is a country which is seriously affected by the climate change. To begin with, for its whole country, Chile is the longest and the narrowest country in the world, and is also a country which has 10,000 kilometer long coastline. That means if the climate change, the sea level goes up, Chile will lose a huge part of its land. So to be able to keep its land, Chile must support those organizations. And secondly, for its economic, Chile has the world's top market for the renewable energy. But its renewable energy rely on its wind-swept cost, which as I said before must be hurt by the climate change. Nowadays, renewable energy is cheaper than electricity sold on Chile's spot market. So if the supply of the renewable energy become limited, people and industry in Chile have to spend more on energy, which may increase the cost of production and decrease their competitiveness in the international market. So that for its economy, Chile have to do something to stop the climate change. And finally, for its social, Chile wants to protect the source of drinking water. And one of its most important water sources is its iceberg, which may disappear because of the climate change. So for keep its social stay in peace, Chile needs to stop the climate change, and it seems those organizations will help Chile a lot. So to sum up with, we believe that Chile will keep supporting those organizations.
In order to catch up with UNFCCC, Chile came up with 5 basic pillars, which is based on current situation: mitigation, adaptation, capacity building and strengthening, technology development and transfer, financing. All of the items in the 5 pillars are devoted to protect the sustainability of Chile. In other words, Chile governments make clear their attitude that they will fight against climate change. Congress just approved a carbon tax program to force the country to reach the greenhouse gas emission standard, which is COP. As a developing country, Chile is not only experiencing huge economic growth right now, but also thinking forward to comply with international commitments and make contributions to protect our environment.
In this part, we will introduce our recommendation, show our cost-benefit analysis and social analysis, and also we will explain which vulnerable groups that our recommendations are going to help and how our recommendations will help them.
Our team's first recommendation for Chile is approve the carbon tax. According to scientists, Chile's emission will increase about 38 to 75% at the end of 2030. That increased amount is far beyond the agreement in Paris. This will not only make the climate change worse, but also will harm Chile's position in UNFCCC and Kyoto, since Chile used to be the leader of climate change. The benefits for this proposal are emission will be reduced since we are paying more for emission. On the other hand, pollution will be directly reduced since less greenhouse gas is produced. Our second recommendation is switch to renewable energy. Chile is the richest country in South America in many measures, but it is the poorest country in energy. Since mining is one of the biggest industries in Chile, 80 to 90% of the fossil fuels are imported from the other countries. This proposal is a long-term, but the advantages is significant. The biggest benefit will be saving the big budget of money by switching to renewable energy. Other advantages including reduced pollution and risks for health, while at the same time creating more jobs for people.
In order to better implement the above recommendations, we do the cost-benefit analysis of carbon tax, which concludes that if the carbon tax is placed at $5 metric ton of carbon dioxide emitted, electric price in Chile will be expected to increase, and overall GDP would reduce by a maximum of 0.4% by 2030.
Social analysis carbon tax. The benefits are reduced carbon dioxide emission directly, reduce air pollution, and save lives. The shift from the fossil fuel-dependent growth of the past can address other pressing health, environmental, and development priorities. The negative consequences are people are paying more money than before for their carbon footprint, and they might affect the economy in the short period.
About renewable energy, the renewable energy cost-benefit analysis concludes that a future with a greater renewables deployment would add 1.6 billion more to the Chilean economic, add about 2.3 billion more to GDP, and save 2 billion in fuel costs. Overall, the economic benefit of renewable energy far outweighs the cost for Chile.
Social analysis, renewable energy. The benefits are reduced air pollution caused by burning fossil fuel, produce more directly jobs and indirect jobs to the economy than the base case, save water in the reservoir for other uses, such as agriculture. The negative consequences are in the short term, mining workers will be affected because they used to burn a lot of fossil fuels in their work, and it required a larger land area than conventional technologies.
With our two recommendations, we believe that we can provide more job opportunities for indigenous people and women. Well, first, with carbon emission tax, capital will tend to focus on new industry will emission less carbon as the lower production cost, and this will give rise to lots of new business and provide more working opportunities in some new industry. And then we switch to renewable energy that could not only provide job opportunities in renewable energy industry, but also in lots of other traditional industry. As we said before, nowadays the renewable energy in Chile is quite cheap. So by switching to renewable energy, the traditional industry will be able to increase its competitive in international market with lower production cost. As they can expose more product, they need more people to production those goods, which provide more working opportunities now. And also with higher competitiveness on international market, there will be more exports for Chile, and this will provide more job opportunities in the future too.
Finally, I want to say that poor people is also a vulnerable group that governments need to think of. Provide clean and enough drinking water for vulnerable parties, especially poor and children in Chile, is very important. Children's resistance is weaker than adults. With carbon emission tax, the governments will have more budget to deal with climate change, such as Save the Sprague now. Also be able to build more infrastructure such as water treatment facility in the future. Renewable energy also can improve poor people's life quality due to several reasons. Renewable energy could decrease the price of common goods. Poor people are more sensitive for the price of common goods than normal people. So decrease in price of common goods will absolutely help poor people to have better life quality.
Climate change is not a problem for the future. It's a problem right now. We should really pay attention to it. Chile's government is beginning to take climate change more seriously. It launched some national action plan for climate change based on the current situation. We are confident that Chile can adapt to the future climate as long as it starts planning and investing according to those recommendations.